Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into one of the most explosive and defining moments in history, the 1857 revolt in India. We aren't just going to sit here and recite dates. We're going to map out exactly how this massive rebellion spread literally like wildfire. We'll be looking at the incredible Indian heroes who led the charge, the brutal British officers who suppressed them, and the underlying forces that tore the subcontinent apart. All right, bypassing the long preamble, let's start right at the catalyst. Mangal Pandey was a sepoy in the 34th Native Infantry. On March 29th, his bold rebellion at Barrackpore and his subsequent execution on April 8th absolutely acted as the spark that ignited the entire powder keg. This wasn't just a simple mutiny, it was the first real crack in the dam. But 1857 didn't just happen in a vacuum. Before we track the wildfire, we really need to understand the explosives. The immediate outrage was, of course, over the introduction of the new Royal Enfield Rifles, which used cartridges allegedly greased with cow and pig fat. That was deeply offensive to both Hindu and Muslim soldiers. But honestly, that was just the tipping point. This was combined with deep-seated political grievances, like the British doctrine of lapse, which was just aggressively swallowing up Indian princely states, along with relentless economic exploitation that ruined local artisans and absolutely crushed farmers with massive taxes. And wow, did this rapid escalation completely catch the British establishment off guard. From a localized incident in Barrackpore in late March, the tension simmered until it just absolutely exploded in Meerut on May 10th. By the very next day, May 11th, the rebel soldiers had marched all the way to Delhi, effectively claiming the capital for the emperor. Section 1. Delhi, the center of revolution. So this sudden takeover set the stage for a truly monumental clash. The sepoys declared the aging Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar as their symbolic leader, though the real military brains behind the defense of Delhi was General Bakht Khan, who brought in discipline and troops from Bareilly. Facing them were ruthless British counterparts like John Nicholson, known for his sheer fearlessness, and William Hodson, a brilliant but incredibly cold intelligence officer with a vast spy network. Now, the battle to retake Delhi was, frankly, incredibly bloody. While the British eventually recaptured the city by September 20th, it came at a high cost. John Nicholson actually died breaching the Kashmiri Gate. But the aftermath is what really echoes in history. Hodson used his spies to capture Emperor Zafar, who was hiding at Humayun's tomb. And to break the spirit of the rebellion, Hodson mercilessly executed the Mughal princes without trial at the Kuni Darwaza, the Blood Gate, simply to instill absolute terror among the Indian populace. Section 2. Major Centers and Heroes, a geographical mapping. From Delhi, the rebellion fractured, right? It sparked these intense conflicts all across northern and central India. In Kanpur, Nana Saheb, who was also known as Don DuPont, along with his brilliant tactician Tatya Tope, fought fiercely against the British until Commander-in-Chief Colin Campbell managed to regain control. Meanwhile, over in Lucknow, Begum Hajrat Mahal fiercely laid siege to the British residency. It was actually here that the British administrator Henry Lawrence was killed by a rebel shell, which forced Campbell to eventually march in and systematically break the siege. And the sheer diversity of this resistance is just remarkable. Down in Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai led a legendary defense against Sir Hugh Rose. Further east in Jagdishpur, Bihar, an absolutely incredible story unfolded. Get this, an 80-year-old local leader named Kuwar Singh used brilliant guerrilla tactics to repeatedly outmaneuver British officers William Taylor and Vincent Eyre. Age was clearly no barrier at all to the fight for independence. The sheer valor of the Indian resistance actually commanded respect even from the enemy. After the really intense siege of Jhansi and the subsequent battles where Rani Lakshmibai tragically died fighting, British commander Sir Hugh Rose famously remarked of her, "Here lay the woman who was the only man among the rebels." It's a pretty striking testament to her unmatched bravery and leadership on the battlefield. Section 3. The Haryana Front. Now, these northwestern regions of Haryana are often overlooked, but they fiercely supported the uprising. In Rewari, Rao Tularam violently battled British brigadiers, and fascinatingly, he later traveled to seek help from Afghanistan and Russia, showing some really incredible geopolitical awareness. In Balabgar, Raja Nathar Singh acted as Delhi's Iron Gate, heavily fortifying the capital's defenses. And in Jajhar, Nawab Abdurrahman Khan actively resisted before eventually being captured and executed at Chandni Chowk. Section 4. Cruel British Suppression. So the British retaliation was characterized by a pretty horrifying split in tactics. On one hand, Commander-in-Chief Colin Campbell was methodical. He relied on systematic military sieges, careful logistics, and heavily utilizing Gurkha regiments to regain territories like Lucknow and Kanpur. Conversely, you had officers like Colonel James Neal, who basically bypassed military strategy for a dark policy of absolute bloodshed. His goal was simply to inflict pure psychological terror on the population. In fact, Colonel Neal earned the grim moniker, the Butcher of Allahabad. While fighting against the local leader, Maulvi Liaquat Ali, Neal didn't just fight soldiers. He burned entire villages to the ground and ordered the hanging of thousands of unarmed civilians without any form of trial. His twisted logic was that creating an atmosphere of absolute terror was the only possible way to pacify the region. Section 5. The Aftermath and Legacy. So, despite this unprecedented unity, the revolt was brutally crushed by late 1858, mostly due to three key factors. Technologically, the British capitalized heavily on the electric telegraph. This allowed commanders hundreds of miles apart to coordinate troop movements instantly. Second, they just had superior, modern weaponry and a much more unified command. But the third point is perhaps the most crucial: regional loyalties. Many large regions and rulers in Punjab, the South, and princely states like Gwalior and Hyderabad actually sided with the British. The Governor-General Lord Canning famously said these rulers acted as a breakwater in the storm, stopping the rebellion from consuming the entire country. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. Consider the tragedy of Bahadur Shah Zafar, who was ultimately exiled far away to Rangoon, Myanmar, ending centuries of Mughal rule in a totally foreign land. And look at the massive impact of geopolitics. How radically different would the map of India look today if those regional loyalties hadn't divided the country and the whole subcontinent had united during its first war of independence? It's a fascinating historical what if. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next one.